Hello and welcome. You are watching News 9 Live. I'm Krishnakumar, and the big story we're talking about at this hour is the question on whether India's finance ministry is rethinking the new LTCG, or the long-term capital gains tax policy that was adopted in Budget 2024. Let's begin. Homeowners are likely to get some relief. The finance ministry is considering adjustments to the long-term capital gains, or LTCG, tax provisions announced in the Union Budget of 2024. These provisions had revoked indexation benefits for unlisted assets like property and gold. Now, according to reports, one of the proposed changes is to extend the effective date of the new regime to the next financial year, rather than starting from the 23rd of July, the day the budget was presented in the Parliament. Now, additionally, discussions are ongoing about potentially, quote-unquote, grandfathering the purchase of all asset classes. We'll talk about what exactly this grandfathering is on this show. And it also includes property that will allow transactions completed before July 2024, this year, to continue benefiting from the previous indexation rules. Now, sources say that the government is also looking at allowing taxpayers to choose between the old and the new LTCG regimes for real estate transactions. This would give investors the flexibility to select the option that best suits their financial situation, just like how we choose our income tax regime, old or new, as of now. Now, to understand this better, we have a very special guest joining us. We have Mr. Harsh Roongta, founder, Fee-Only Investment Advisors, joining us. Harsh, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us. Stay with us. Now, let's put this into perspective before I come to you. Let's consider two scenarios under the old and the new long-term capital gains tax regimes in India. For this, we will use hypothetical scenarios of selling homes bought in the year 2001 for different amounts. Here is scenario one, where a home is sold for 1 crore rupees. Now, as per the old LTCG regime, indexed cost will be 72.6 lakh rupees, considering inflation adjustments till 2024-25. The sale price is 1 crore rupees. Less index cost 72.6 is 27.4 lakh rupees. Taxation on it 20%. Capital gains resulting in 5.48 lakh rupees in tax. Now, let's consider the same example for the new LTCG regime. Indexed cost not applicable because, of course, there is no indexation in the new regime. Sale price is 1 crore rupees. Less than the index cost is 20 lakh rupees. The original purchase price. Capital gains of 80 lakh rupees. Taxation 12.5%. That's the new regime, resulting in just 10 lakh rupees in tax. So what is the outcome? Under the new regime, there's a higher tax liability of around 4.5 lakh rupees. And that shows a loss as compared to the old regime. Now, let's consider another scenario. Scenario number two. Let's say the home is sold for 5 crore rupees. Under the old LTCG regime, index cost is 72.6 lakhs adjusted for inflation. Sale price is 5 crore rupees. Less index cost of 72.6 is 427.4 lakhs. Taxation 20%. Capital gains resulting in 85.5 lakh rupees in tax. Under the new regime, index cost not applicable because no indexation. 5 crore rupees. Less index cost 20 lakh rupees. 480 lakh rupees of capital gains. 12.5% tax. And that's a taxpayer of 60 lakh rupees, which is less than the old regime. So the new regime offers a benefit, in this case, due to a lower tax rate despite the absence of indexation. Now, Harsh, the question I want to ask before we go any further, the possible changes, the first thing that's been mentioned in the changes to the new LTCG regime is the term grandfathering of assets. Can you put it in simple terms? What exactly is grandfathering in LTCG? Right, Harsh, we seem to be having a bit of an issue with your audio. We will just fix that and come back to you. Stay with us. That was Harsh Roongta over there of Fee Only. He'll be with us. We are trying to understand what exactly is the best way forward for all of us, homeowners and property buyers out there. Will we get some reprieve with the changes that the Finance Ministry of India is reportedly considering to the new LTCG regime that was announced as part of Union Budget 2024? Because bear in mind, there was a lot of concerns about the tax outgo being much higher, despite the fact that the LTCG rate was brought down to 12.5% because there was no indexation benefits as an adjustment of the property price according to inflation since the time the property was bought. Now, there are hopes that there are discussions ongoing about potentially grandfathering the purchase of all asset classes, including property, that will allow transactions completed before July 2024 to get the benefits from the previous indexation rules. That's number one. The government is also reportedly looking at allowing taxpayers to choose, like we choose our income tax regime, be it old or new. Some of us in the old, some of us in new. We would be allowed to choose the LTCG regime as well for real estate transactions. That's also one of the changes being considered. Bear in mind, none of this is final. We're yet to hear an official word from the Finance Ministry on what exactly are the changes that are going to be done, if at all they're going to be done. These are reports that are telling us will investors get flexibility to select the best option that suits them. But even as we ask that question, we are trying to understand what exactly is more beneficial. In a scenario where the house costs at 5 crore rupees, when the value of the house is up, that is when the benefits of the new tax regime really show up. Then your tax outgo is low without the indexation benefits. However, if you were to choose the old regime for much lower value transactions, that's when the indexation benefits really kick in. There's a huge difference when the cost of the house in itself is low in terms of your tax outgo. Indexation is applicable to long-term investments, as we are talking about. So between the old and the new tax regime, indexation has been removed. And bear in mind, indexation includes debt fund and other asset classes as well. And it helps in adjusting the purchase price of investments. Indexation is a key factor that affects not just the home buyer, it also affects the real estate industry per se. And that is the reason why it is a double-edged sword. It makes it difficult for home buyers or aspiring home buyers, if they believe that the new LTCG regime will result in a higher tax outgo, which means the investment that they make in the house will not yield the kind of returns that they originally believed to be, then they will refrain from buying houses. Bear in mind, the housing market is doing exceedingly well at this point in time. It has bounced back from some terrible times before, and it would really want the momentum to keep continuing. And the hope is that the new LTCG regime is not a party pooper in that sense for the real estate industry. That's as far as the stakeholder is concerned, the real estate industry is concerned. But for you as the homeowner and the home buyer, what is it going to be? We have my colleague and friend Karthik Malhotra joining us in the studio for more. Karthik, I mean, the debate continues. There are hopes. Now, any single inkling of a possible rethink is fueling a lot of relief.
It's all still in the realm of speculation, Krishna, and in fact the finance bill has been presented in Parliament today. And the hope is that perhaps there is going to be some discussion, some debate in Parliament over whether the new taxation of LTCG should continue as planned or whether there should be some sort of a change. And perhaps this whole concept of grandfathering kicks in, through which it becomes, the choice is back with the consumer, with the home buyer stroke home seller, as the case may be, on which tax regime he or she wants to apply for. The whole idea being that LTCG, if you remember, was introduced only in 2018. Up until then, there was absolutely no long-term capital gains stroke short-term capital gains which was applicable, and all the income would be added back to your taxable income, and hence you would pay the tax as per the tax slab applicable to you. Income tax, right? Exactly. So in this case now, if you've bought a property between 2001 and 2018, and now before this 2024 new tax regime, which got introduced in the budget, the new LTCG kicks in, you as a seller of a property have not factored in these changes. So if you happen to have bought a house before this period, then you may be allowed grandfathering, which means you may be given a choice to opt for the existing old long-term capital gains at 20%, including indexation. But whether this will happen or not, and what kind of decisions get taken in the Parliament, is something that we will have to wait and watch.
But it's interesting, even as we are, whether we, as you're rightly pointing out, and as you've been saying from the beginning, we're yet to understand if any of these proposed changes are actually going to happen. We have Harsh Roongta now with us on the broadcast back. Harsh, great to have you with us. Talk to us in simple terms about grandfathering and your views on the proposed grandfathering of all asset classes.
So, just to understand the concept of grandfathering, let me quickly take you back to the time in on February 1, 2018, when taxation on equity was reintroduced from zero. 10% tax was introduced. But one, the capital gains as on 31st January, that would not be taxed even if it is sold today. So what it did was that it said that what would be deducted from the sale price would be the cost price or the sale uh, price or the value of the shares as on 31st January. Now that is grandfathering, so that all, even though gains were taxable, but only gains made after 31st January. That's grandfathering. As far as real estate is concerned, I don't see what grandfathering is there. I think they're talking about 1/4/2001, but that grandfathering existed. I mean, if you had bought an asset prior to 1/4/2001, then you could substitute the value as on 1/4/2001 at your option. That already existed. That has not been brought in by the amendment. I can't see any other grandfathering, and I think that has been the biggest issue. In the example that you gave, the first example, where 20 lakhs becomes sort of 1 crore, there the return is around 7%, and per annum over the 23 years or so that passed between 2001 and 2024. And there, obviously, when you're getting a return of roughly 7%, the old indexation method works. The second one, which you have done, where 1 crore, 20 lakhs becomes 5 crores, that is a return in excess of about 17 or 18%. The cutoff is around 10%. So if you take the calculation from 20 lakhs to roughly about 2 crores, roughly, okay, you will find that there is no difference between the old LTCG regime with indexation or the new regime. Uh, the point to note is that unfortunately, real estate has rarely given double digit returns over long periods of time. It
Okay.
may give it in bursts, but over long periods of time, it has rarely given double digits. So, this clearly is an increase in rate carried out without any warning. And I think increasing the rate is the government's prerogative. Very clearly, we were behind the curve in terms of the rate at which we taxed capital gains. But changing the method itself, I think notice was required, and it has been done in the past. It isn't that this is new. It has always been done in the past. There is always a period during which you get to adjust. And
Right.
hopefully, it seems like it will be
Fair
done
enough.
now, or at least
I,
those are the signals that are coming in.
I have a simple question to ask you at this stage, and I want a quick answer from you. Should there be two regimes for home buyers? The old LTCG 20% and the new LTCG 12.5%. With indexation in the previous one and without indexation in the new one. Like we
At
have two
least
IT
for the old
regimes.
assets, yes. At least for the old assets, yes.
Okay. Only for the old assets, you would say, not for all.
At least for the old assets,
Okay.
yes.
At least for the old assets. The word coming in from Harsh Roongta.